Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Welcome back to part 2 of our Lancashire event mini-series. If you've just come from episode 1 with Dan Stevens, you'll already know what this series is all about. It's all about stripping firefighting back to the core ideas that matter: capability, clarity, and genuine operational effectiveness. Today, we're going to move from national inspections and system-wide analysis to something just as important: how you build a fire service that actually thinks together. And there's really no better voice, in my opinion, to guide that conversation than Station Officer Gerard Mann of Fire and Rescue Victoria. For long-time podcast listeners, again, Gerard doesn't really need much of an introduction. He's joined us twice before, episodes 198, 321, where he unpacked tactical decision-making, doctrine design, and realities of modern structural firefighting. In Lancashire, he took that thinking even further. Gerard's got 16, 17 years probably now in the job, across operations, training, incident command, and doctrine development. He's led crews, helped steer national conversations in Australia, and worked on everything from high-rise firefighting to WI response. He brings a rare mix of clear thinking, practical experience, and almost engineering-like way of breaking down complexity, I think. In our session today, recorded at Lancashire, he's going to lay down our framework that runs through everything Fire and Rescue Service Victoria has been rebuilding since its major organisational merger. So we're talking strategy, tactics, tasks, and techniques, all working together, all grounded in evidence, all written by practitioners, not bureaucrats. He talks about why good leadership is meaningless without capable crews, why magic happens at the task and technique level, and why modern services can't rely on scattered policies, legacy habits, or heroic improvisations. Gerard also doesn't shy away from the legal and ethical reality facing every fire service today. After the death of firefighter Isabella Nash and Australia's first operational manslaughter proceedings, the standard is clear. You must be able to show that your doctrine, your training, and your decisions are defensible. What I think makes Gerard so valuable in this series is how practically he connects all of this. So from bite-sized skill modules to consistent instructor development, from like practitioner-written doctrine, which is sometimes hard to wrap your head around, to a unified, more tactical language. He shows what an integrated modern firefighting system actually looks like. So think of it like if episode 1 gave us the why, today's episode gives us some of the how. So let's get into it with part 2, Gerard Mann. I'll see you on the other side.
So we've had some really great presentations today about the problems that we have with our industry and how do we manage that? How do we change our response models? We keep identifying these problems, but we don't seem to be coming up with tangible solutions. So I want to take you on a bit of a journey that we went on as an organisation, and it started in 2018 when a chief from Merseyside came out to the Metropolitan Fire Brigade of Melbourne to become the chief officer and told us we probably weren't measuring up. And our initial response to that was, righto mate, thanks, wouldn't have thought so, boss. But then we took some time to think about what he said. And we started to ask more questions and think about more things, and we started to enact some plans. And what I'm going to show you today is a really blue sky approach to firefighting operations. And it's not just for structural firefighting, it's for everything we do in operations. We got tired, we had a massive opportunity that most brigades don't get. So in 2020, we took all the whole-time firefighters from the county service in my state, and the Metropolitan Fire Brigade joined them together and made a new service. So that gave us a really great opportunity to blue sky our whole approach. When we did that, the first thing that came down from management was select someone's policies, procedures, training, and we'll just go with that. And that caused a lot of arguments. So we just said, well, why don't we start again? Because we were sick of sitting in a leaky boat. And that's sometimes what it feels like when we're developing new training, when we get new risks, like we're getting batteries. So now we're like, oh, we've got to think about all these lithium-ion batteries and our response to lithium-ion batteries. How are we going to bring that into the fold? How are we going to make that understandable? So you plug that leak, but then another leak comes up and you plug that leak. So we wanted to basically build a new boat. So I'll take you through that journey. probably too far away. Yep. For those that don't know me, my name's Gerard, Mann. I used to have a fabulous mustache. I took it off a few months ago. I'm a station officer based in Melbourne, Victoria. I've spent the last 16 years in emergency service, and over that journey I've worked in large regional centres. I started with at a station in a city of 100,000. I worked for a joint agency, so we had volunteer and whole-time staff. Volunteers being volunteers, so no contracts, turn up, no fitness requirements. I just want to get in the fire truck, sick, jump on. We'll put you through some training. And while they're doing the best they can with what they know, a lot of the time you might have people that turned up that couldn't wear BA. When I started there, we had 6 whole-time firefighters for that city. So we were trained on everything, and we had 7 apparatus. I used to turn out 2 up on a pump. And this wasn't that long ago. And then you'd be at a fire hoping that volunteers would turn up, or the other whole-time crews were released to be able to come help you. So it's been a very interesting journey, but it's given me a really good perspective. It's given me the perspective of time, distance, resourcing. And that's something that we all need to be aware of, as our struggles with retention, recruitment, budgetary constraints come down on us and actually reduce our capability while what everyone wants to put on us goes up. Through my journey, I've also worked in what we call day work. I've been an instructor, I've worked in planning, policy, operational guidance. We don't sit in those day work positions for long, and we actively encourage only being there for about 6 to 12 months. It's not to say you can't come back, but we want you to get back out on shift, back out on the watch, so that you see the impact you're having and you're able to come back with problems that you've found. So if you're in our structural firefighting team, you'll go out on the watch. You might go, hey, no one's really understanding this. So you can come back in and you can go, hey, we're not really understanding this out on shift. What could we do about it? And we can start to look and have a bit of quality assurance and quality control in what we're teaching. So Melbourne, beautiful big city, lots of tall buildings, very new. Population of around 5.5 million. A lot of development over the last 20 years, including taking up our love of boating. Second time I've tried that joke in 2 days, no one laughed. We've built a lot of tall buildings in that time. But it's not all tall buildings and massive metropolitan skylines. It's also full of leafy suburbs that you'd see in Ramsay Street. And we also have our suburbs of lower socioeconomic council housing. So we've got quite a vast environment that we work in and cover. We have around 4,000 firefighters operationally. We have another 500 command staff that cross over to the Country Fire Authority and back them up, as well as support our agency. And we have about 500 corporate, technical and administrative people. We're a completely whole-time service. So we've got some ability to do some things that others might not. You've really shortened the distance so I don't go walkabout too much, eh? All right, so where we came from. So before 2020, we had 2 fire agencies. We had the Metropolitan Fire Brigade of Melbourne and the Country Fire Authority of Victoria. And they had different approaches to the way we went about our business. And I'm going to start with doctrine. The MFB had no formalised SOPs or SOGs. We based everything we did on our field operational guide, or our little pocketbook, and that's what we said was doctrine. If we were ever audited, we'd say that the training material was doctrine, the manuals. So you might sit a course 10 years ago and you've got the manual, that's the doctrine. You might sit it 5 years later, that manual's been updated, you never got the update. So we had a lot of issues with how we approach things. Conversely, the Country Fire Authority, which I started with, they were guided by operational field guides, but they also had standing orders and SOPs. Though those standing orders were more about how you shine your shoes and do those kind of things, how you look, how you dress. And the SOPs were more notification lists. So you've got a firefighter injured, you contact him, he contacts him, he contacts him, he contacts you. That's it. That was all that was in there. There was no flexible strategic or tactical decision-making tools in there for how we approached our operations. And they were very rigid. And they lacked a term that we started to coin called prescribed flexibility. And we'll get into more of that later. So, what is a fire and rescue service? My favourite quote to answer this question comes from Jeff Godfredson. He was the former Chief Officer of the Metropolitan Fire Brigade back in the late 90s. And he said that a fire and rescue service was a training organisation that sometimes attends fires and emergencies. So he knew the importance of training. Now, we all understand that our training also has to align to our doctrine. And those two together guide our operations. So what happens when we don't get that right? The journey, 2010 I started as a volunteer, 2012 I became a career firefighter, 2024 last year I got poked to promote to a station officer. Over my journey, my expectations did not meet reality. I thought that when I joined the fire service, I would know how to pull a hose off a truck because there'd be a procedure for it. I thought I'd know how to go into a burning building and make decisions because there'd be procedures for it. Because if you look at any other industry, they have a rigid schedule to meet OH&S requirements about how you go about your business. And we didn't have that. They gave me a fog nozzle that could go from 180 to 0. And I used to ask my instructors, well, which one do I set it on? And they said 30. But why do I have all this other range? Oh, you don't need it. And I'm like, well, why don't we just make 30-degree nozzles? We didn't have the understanding. We didn't have the ability to know what we were doing. And so my expectations didn't meet what I thought was going to be the case in my journey in the fire services. Our doctrine lacked consistency, it lacked measurement, it lacked strategies, tactics, tasks, and techniques. Our systems and processes in IMS were pretty good. We were pretty rigid. We work under AIMS, Australasian Interagency Incident Management System. They developed because we have such large wildfires every year. So it was a way of the states working together. Every state signs up to it, every state uses it. But it still doesn't cover all the risks we have. So some of the stuff that doesn't get captured in AIMS was based upon people's opinions. It wasn't based on fact. There was no evidence behind why we do certain things. In our training. On recruits, I did all this gas cooling stuff. I did heaps of different things. But then in promotions, when I was learning to become an incident controller, we didn't have to worry about those things that I'd learnt. So there was no consistent path up. And when we started to question, hey, why aren't we considering what the firefighters do when we're incident controllers? They came back at us and said, well, this assessment's about command and control, not about strategies and tactics. And so we started asking, well, when do we teach strategy and tactics? And the answer was we didn't. It became very much you go grab all the information you can and just make a plan. And that led to some really high flyers that were really well informed being able to do some really amazing things. But it left the mean kind of lost. Because every time they turned up, they had to think about everything again and come up with that plan and approach. So when we started FRV in 2020 now, I'll tell you what, great opportunity to start a new fire service in the year 2020. Wouldn't recommend it with a pandemic and then a cyber hack, because there's already enough cultural differences, but we did it. But when we started, we had no common hazard knowledge. Both organisations taught different kind of hazard knowledge to their people. We had no set control measures. I could ask you what a tactic is, and you might tell me to and bow with a hose reel jet. You might tell me exterior control. You might tell me I'm going to put water in from the outside. They're all doing the same thing, but there was no consistent message. There was no language to how we operated. We had no tactics, so therefore we had no tactics. We had no standardised operation, and we existed on legacy, culture, and practice.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the Fireground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
Most of the information we got was around the kitchen table in the station. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But you need to have a system that allows you to contextualise those stories when you pass them on so that they're actionable items that you're getting in. So 2020, when we formed, because of my background as a CFBT instructor, because I was keen, because I made a lot of noise, because I gave a lot of senior management grey hair, they said, well, come fix it. Come be a part of that journey. So I went into our planning, policy and operational guidance department, and we conducted a doctrine review. And originally they set us the task of pick one. And we're like, well, which one do you want? They're like, well, which one's cheaper? And if we went down that path, we would have just picked the Metropolitan Services guidance, which wasn't much. But then we didn't have to teach as many people when we had to teach the county service. So we thought that wasn't a really good plan. When we did our doctrine review, we said there's nothing in here that sets our strategies, tactics, techniques, tasks and techniques. There's no consistency across any of our disciplines. So we wanted to do that. So we started to research what was going on. We looked outside of our own agency and we talked to our national partners and we talked to our international partners. And we wanted to see what risks they had, what hazards they had and what approaches they took. And lastly, we wanted to create doctrine that supported our people doing their jobs instead of doctrine that was used to police our people in their actions. We didn't want to use doctrine as a whacking stick anymore. Rather, we wanted to use it to support crew managers when they're acting up for the day as watch managers. We wanted to give people some questioning so that they could take their skills, knowledge and experience and apply it in line with organisational expectations. So the objective was to create a structured, logical, scalable system that had strategic vision with tactical execution. We wanted role-specific responsibilities. You as a firefighter should be able to go find how to use every piece of equipment we carry on that truck in line with organisational expectations. You as a watch manager should be able to find out how to select strategies and tactics. And you should be able to find reference material to support the decisions that these guys are making. So we wanted to have that role-specific responsibility. So when we started creating our doctrine, we rank aligned it. We're like, if you're going to be this, you need to know all this. If you're going to be this, you need to know the next layer up. So we created frameworks, and then we want to align those frameworks to our curriculum delivery. Because if I'm going to teach you something, there should be a reason, and that reason should be easily found within the organisational policy. And we wanted an evidence-based systems approach. We wanted to create something that was based on science, and therefore, when we learnt more, we could change it so we could do more. So we created 4 pillars. The first one is operational strategies. And this was a gift from Dan Stevens to us before he left. And it was generic risk assessments around group hazards. So one of the operational strategies might be called structural firefighting. And it lists all the risks and hazards associated with structural firefighting. Then we have sub ones, so high rise, which then picks out those specific risks around high rise, commercial and industrial buildings, hospitals and aged care facilities. And it just picked out the specific risks according to the greater risk. You had rescues, you had USAR, you had bushfire. From there, we wanted to create operational method statements, which was guidance for our officers on scene to select their strategies and tactics, but also give them what the organisation expects of you in regards to interacting with other agencies, interacting with council, notifying certain utilities, all that kind of stuff. So it became our standard So operational method statements was our fancy way of saying standardised operating procedure. Our operational guidance then became our tactical layer. So if I said to you, I want you to do positive pressure ventilation, that's really hard to write. But what we could do was construct something that would tell you what the objective of utilising that tactic was, how that tactic worked on a fire science level, associated tasks to achieve that tactic, tactical considerations and safety. And then we wanted our techniques, which is our operational practices, so our 1, 2, 3, 4 of starting the fan, our 1, 2, 3, 4 of pulling a hose off the truck, our 1, 2, 3, 4 of putting a BA on. So that we could take our operational practices to execute the tasks in line with the tactic, to achieve the strategy with a risk-based approach. So doctrine, what is it? And it's been really interesting this trip. I've spoken to some agencies and they're like, hey, we just finished our structural firefighting SOP. And I'm like, sick. They're like, yeah, it's 60 pages. 60 pages is a manual. It's not doctrine, that's reference material. That's learning material. That's not actually giving me an executable action that I can do on the fireground. If I've got to remember 60 pages, it ain't happening. So we wanted to realise what doctrine was. So we thought, okay, doctrine outlines governance. Doctrine is legally required to meet OH&S frameworks. Doctrine's meant to dictate what needs to be achieved, but doctrine often lacks context. So what's training? Training is used to contextualise doctrine. It dictates how to practically apply operational doctrine within the settings that you will go to, within the settings you will respond to. So we came up with a workflow. We wanted limited strategies, we wanted tactical options, we wanted tasks to achieve those tactics, and we wanted techniques that we would employ to achieve those tasks. So a few questions, and I asked some of these yesterday, so you will know the answers. Is there a difference between training and operations? Has it ever been said in your training school, in the real world we would? So if you have to say, in the real world we would, something's broken. And if you're saying, in the real world we would, you're wasting time. And me and Lucas have been saying for a while on this trip together, no one's ever said, oh, I could lose a few days of this course as an instructor. You know, I've got too much time to teach this. So we wanted to treat our people better, treat our people with more respect and respect their time and not have to say that. Because when we waste people's time, they start to lose us. So we need to look at how we'd achieve this. So we need to rewrite our curriculum, we need to rewrite our doctrine, and we need to make 2 executable streams in both lines. And it's not easy, and people don't like it. Because if you say, hey, we're changing everything, imagine you're on station shift. Like you're on station staff right now, the boys and girls out there. They're not going to be stoked if you go, hey, guess what? Here's everything you need to know, and we've rewritten it all. But it needed to be done. We had no other option. So what is a strategy? And it's a good question because like when I was taught strategy on my station officers, they said, oh, Recchio's a strategy. Page brew, which is police, ambulance, gas, electricity. Like it's the acronym for what services you need, that's a strategy. And you're like, no, they're supporting systems and strategic objectives. So the people teaching it, even though we've written this stuff, still weren't grasping it. So we had to go back and go, cool, what is a strategy? A strategy is your aim for the incident. That's it. Doesn't have to be complex. Doesn't have to be a long sentence. It's just your aim for the incident. So we as an agency decided that there were two strategies for every incident, whether they be rescue, hazmat, or fire.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighting podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
So we had offensive. And our offensive means that we're actively going to resolve this. We're going to put the fire out, going to rescue the person, going to plug the leak. We have the skills and ability to be able to do what we need to do to stop this. Therefore, a defensive strategy was where we were going to argue with everyone else about how long it was taking us to resolve it, because we can't resolve it straight away. Again, my jokes are lost. We're going to contain this and minimise harm as we cannot resolve it at this time. We can't plug the leak, can't put the fire out, can't rescue the person right now. So by communicating our strategic intent, whether we're in the offensive or defensive mode, people now know what we expect. So now if we're going to utilise operational discretion, which should be supported, especially in larger incidents, you can use operational discretion in line with the strategic intent of the job. So if the strategic intent is offensive, and I'm in a machine going to a grass fire, and I see an opportune moment to slip into a paddock and put a bit of grass fire out, I'll go, hey, control point, Found fire in Jill's paddock, got great access, going for it. Yep, sick. Inversely, if we're in a defensive strategy, so my strategic aim is to minimise harm and try and contain it, and I go off and put the fire out, but the IC wants me to go defend someone's house, I'm now operating outside of that. So it allows me to make operational discretion in what to do. So from our strategy, we now set our strategic objectives. In Victoria, we have the Emergency Management Victoria, and they outline the state strategic priorities. First one's protection of life, pretty straightforward. Second one is community informations and warnings. After the 2009 bushfires in Victoria, we got absolutely destroyed by Royal Commission because we did not inform communities that were going to be impacted of the fire, that they were going to be impacted of the fire. It was found that we did not provide them the information they needed to make an informed decision on their safety. So that's the second priority for us. So now, when we go to automated fire alarms, and in Australia, if you've got an automated fire alarm, you have an emergency warden intercom system, so it does automatic evacuations, and it's got a PA. So I turn up to an AFA, fire brigade's here, investigate an alarm on level 13. If you're on level X to Y, please evacuate. Everyone else, wait for further instruction. Call 000 if there's fire and smoke. So now that's how I get about that priority. Next one, critical infrastructure, community assets. So you got a flood or a bushfire. Again, you can see the context of Australia and where our heads are with emergencies. We're protecting power, water, gas, hospitals, aged care facilities, school halls, community buildings, supermarkets, because if you need to get aid into a community, a supermarket's really well set up to provide logistical support for that. Primary residences, economic assets, and secondary residences and environment. So our strategic objectives must be in line with that. So when we've got our strategy, we think about the strategic objectives and we set ourselves SMART objectives. Everyone's heard of a SMART objective? Cool. Relevant time framed. All right. And we seem to use SMART objectives in incident control a lot, don't we? So on your crew managers, and your watch managers, you'll have to set SMART objectives and tell the panel why you're setting that SMART objective. Are these limited to that command and control role? Or can we teach them to recruits? Can I start embedding you when you walk through the door the way I want you to think when you become an officer? Can I go, hey, can you set me a SMART objective in setting a hose and doing a changeover? Hey, can you set me a SMART objective in putting a BA on, go and grabbing the person? Can we start building that way of thinking so that they understand what they're doing better, which saves me time on the back end when I'm starting to promote them, because now I'm just shifting their thinking a little. So tactics, again, for us, we didn't have common tactics. We didn't know what tactics were. We were just saying what we were doing. I got 2 in BA, 38 inside. Sick, what are they doing? Oh no, house is fully involved. Well, how are they inside? I don't know. That's the kind of level we were operating at, and it wasn't the best we could be. So we wanted to start having a look at what we could do with tactics. We wanted to create a common language, and we wanted to set tactical objectives that helps achieve the strategic intent and the strategic objectives. So we wanted to be able to ask you, what's your tactical plan? You tell me the steps that you were going to use to achieve that strategy. So tactics for us was the steps that you're going to do to achieve that outcome that you selected. Put the fire out or don't put the fire out. And the selection of them was going to be informed through utilising their hazard knowledge against the incident priorities and incident considerations. There's our list of tactics for firefighting. So we have 4 water tactics, 6 ventilation tactics, 5 search tactics. Each one of those has a document called an operational guide that outlines how we execute that tactic. So to give you the example, we're going to go through water, but while the tactical execution may vary depending on the conditions, the selection of each tactic is guided by the following elements. We set a tactical objective. What's the goal of using this step? Because you need to know what the goal of using the step is to be able to execute your aim. How does it work? On a fire science level, on a building construction level, in a rescue level, how does it work? How does this tactic actually achieve that objective? Tactical considerations. What are you thinking about? What's driving your selection in your decision-making process to select this? And what tasks are you going to do to execute this tactic? So what tasks are you selecting to execute the tactic in line with that aim? And lastly, the safety considerations around this tactic. So we'll look at water tactics. And I'll give you a little moment to take a bit of a read. But this is the tactic and the objective of that tactic. So if I'm doing exposure control, my objective is to control fire extension and limit fire growth to the building of origin. If I'm doing exterior control, I want to reset conditions inside the house. So it explains what my objective is from taking this step. How does it work? Well, I want to stop radiant heat impacting on my exposures, so I'm going to wet them or put something up there to block it, whatever it is. Exterior control. If I cool unignited fuels from the outside, inside, I stop pyrolysis, I displace flame, I absorb heat energy. And so the objective and how it works guides my selection of task. So for exposure control, I might do surface wetting, I might do direct attack, or I could even apply CAFs. Because what's my objective? To limit radiant heat on that exposure. Applying a blanket of CAFs will limit radiant heat on that exposure. So I can now tell you why I'm choosing things. I can now explain my method of operation. Safety considerations, tactical considerations are like this long for each, so I didn't put them in there. But it's kind of things like, is it going to take you a long time to access the fire inside? Or can you access the fire from outside for exterior control? So exterior control, the tactic's removed if it's blowing out the 2-3 sector corner and there's a big dog in the backyard and a massive fence. No, I can't do that. Cool, don't select it. So that's the tactical consideration side of things. So if that's tactics, and tactics are what needs to be done, tasks will then define how we do it. So the tactic could be interior control, and the task could be gas cooling or surface cooling. So they're what we need to do to achieve that tactic. And they're the specific actions performed by firefighters. So therefore techniques are the applied methods we use to perform a task under the conditions presented. So for example, I could be doing exterior control. So fire conditions inside, too advanced for me to put people in there. I want to put water in from the outside to reset that fire. When that water goes in there, it's going to displace oxygen, cool things, break up, make steam, all that kind of good stuff. The task I want to do is load a high stream. The technique could be hose reel jet. The technique could be 45mm hose. The technique could be utilising an ALP. The techniques become the steps in our lesson plans. This is what people need to know to be able to put the task into context. So they allow us to scale and adapt our tactics, and they reflect our training capability and context. Techniques form the base of our skill sessions. They're our base level foundations. How you put a BA on, how you move a hose, how you utilise the branch. The task gives us the context. The tactic gives us the step. And the strategy gives us the aim. So if we have a look here, surface cooling, techniques, hose deployment, stream selection, stream deflection, pumping, BA, you could just add a whole list. But when you start to map out your tasks into the techniques, you start to see what skills your people need. And you start to see what skills you need to train and what context they need to know to be able to achieve what you want them to do. And this isn't just for firefighting, this could be for rescue. The task could be a B-pillar removal. What are the techniques you need to do? Could be for a hazmat. Could be plugging a leak on a petrochem. What do you need to do? So if we put it all together, strategy, offensive, the tactic that I'm going to do to achieve that one of the tactics, one of the steps I'm going to do to achieve that offensive strategy is gas cooling. And the techniques I'm going to need to do are this, this, and this. So now when we're teaching our recruits, we go, all right, we go do our base skill level foundations. Hey guys, today we're going to look at the tactic of exposure control. So we're going to go out there and our tasks are going to be surface wetting and applying foam to surfaces or doing direct attacks. And we just do evolutions of that. hey guys, today we're looking at interior control. So we're going to use our techniques and we're going to put them together and go do surface cooling and gas cooling with heaps of different things inside structures on the PLE, practical learning environment. It's our way of being able to compartmentalise and take the complexity out of what we're saying and give context to our students. So techniques matter because they provide our options within the doctrine and they allow us to scale according to certain things like fire behaviour and building construction. So I can go, cool, techniques like we're going to do a high to low with a hose reel jet. Why? Because this. Hey, we're going to do high to low with a ground monitor. Why? Because this. It allows me to give them that kind of decision-making process. And it supports decision-making on the fly without straying from the doctrine. Forms the basis of our skills for the curriculum. And we base the selection of our techniques input-output. Why are you doing this thing? Why are you doing that thing? All right, so let's run you through one. 2 a.m, we're in Australia, so we've got a single-storey brick veneer home, smoke showing from Sector 1, unknown if occupants are inside. No fire showing externally, smoke inside. I turn up with a pump and 4. I know that a pump and 4 is coming and it'll be here in a couple of minutes. I reckon I can solve this because I reckon I've got the resources, I reckon I've got the water, and I reckon the building's going to stay standing. So that's my 3 questions I'm asking myself in line with my doctrine. I'll select defensive. So I'm going to set myself some objectives. I want to confine the fire to the room of origin, make sure no one's inside. My tactics, interior control, extinguishment, anti-vent, negative pressure vent, positive pressure vent, orientated search. Tasks, things I need people to do, techniques, list of techniques that make up those actions. And you could extrapolate this out and out and out into mind maps. It's just an example. But let's show you how this transfers cross-discipline. So safety third. All right, so let's show you how this goes through and transfers. So I had this job a couple of weeks before coming here. So a tower crane collapse, 4 p.m. onto high voltage power lines. I had a driver trapped. And it looks really big and scary, but what can you do? I don't know if the crane's energised. I don't know if the crane's going to continue to fall over. What can I do? Can I actively resolve that? No, I can't. There's nothing I can do on a pump with 4. So my strategy is defensive. Don't want this getting any worse, no one go near it. So my strategic objectives were to keep the driver as safe as I could, isolate the power, and then when safe to do so, remove the driver. My tactics, therefore, are protect in place. So talk to the driver, calm them down, say, hey mate, we're coming for you. It's going to be okay. You're safe where you are. I've just got a few things to deal with before we bring you down, but we are coming for you. And utilise the specialists within our organisation. So the first thing we did, isolate, collapse zone, isolate, power zone. So we just went, cool, we're going to put a 60 metre, no one closer than 60 metres to this thing. Get the barrier tape out, run the barrier tape out. Call for our specialists, get our drones out so we can assess the damage to the crane, make sure with the crane company next to us so they can do all their calculations because they know cranes, I don't know cranes, and they can tell me if it's going to fall over any further. And then I'm going to get our high angle rescue team to remove the driver. So we cordoned it off with tape, we inspected the damage with the drone, we isolated power in coordination with the power company, talked to the driver on radios, and in the end, we didn't even need rope rescue. The crane company said it was fine, we just walked the driver down, got him in the ambulance, just for a check over. But you can see how that really scary event is simply to break down when you can go, hey, what's my aim here? Well, what can I do? Nothing. Sick. Defensive. Or hey, can I actively resolve it? Yep, sick. Offensive. Let's go.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Smaller incidents, larger incidents, they're all the same. When you get larger and you start to sectorize, you just have more little incidents inside your one big incident. So you can have an overall offensive strategy, but Sector 3, due to anything, could be in defensive. So anyone in Sector 3, you're defensive, therefore your operational discretion is just don't let this get bigger. Everyone else actively try and resolve it. There are flaws in it. If you don't communicate the strategy, no one knows your intent. If they don't know your intent, they can't act inside of it. If you select a tactic but don't match it with the appropriate task, that tactic's not going to achieve the aim that you want it to achieve, so you're not going to be able to progress it forward. If your tasks are applied without clarity or consistency, they're not going to achieve the tactic. Therefore, in training, we need to develop what our tasks are and how we train them. And if our techniques are skipped, rushed, or incomplete, we're not going to be able to achieve the task. If our tactics break down on the fireground, it's usually because the plan wasn't communicated clearly, not because the crews lacked effort. I don't know of any firefighter in my service that has ever turned up and gone, you know what, I'm actively going to work against being a good firefighter. I'm going to turn up today and do the worst I possibly can. No one's ever said that. And I know it's a bit of a juxtaposition and we could go off on a massive big tangent about how that attitude is completely opposite to some people's want to drill and get better, but we'll leave that there. But when they turn out, when they tip out, the tones go, they want to do the best they can. And they want to do the best they can with what they know. If they're not doing better, it's because they don't know better. It's not because of the lack of effort. It's not because they don't care. It's because they don't know any better. We as agencies need to own this fact. We as training organisations need to fix it. That onus is on us. So how do we teach it? Got this good system, how do we actually apply it? And if you were here yesterday, you would have heard my spiel about my mate Denny Tinatali. He was a structural instructor with me. He put up the tape in that job, so he was pretty happy with himself. He did a really good job of putting the tape up. One of the smartest men I know, big gentle giant. We were doing our structural instructors course and we wanted to create better instructors because what's our voice to our operational people? As organisations, who delivers that information? Who are the most important people that you need to invest in their teaching and communication skills? Your instructors. Because if your people don't know better, if your people don't do better, it's because they don't know better. How are you going to get them to do better? Your instructors. So we wanted to develop a system of teaching that married up to operations that could be used as a debrief tool, because what's the difference between that? Operations and training. There shouldn't be a difference. We wanted something that we could identify weaknesses in our program. We wanted something we could identify weaknesses in the students so we could better match their learning needs. So Denny and his big brain came up with our training system. So we wanted to produce a system that was scalable to any rank or role. I use it on you as a recruit, I use it on you as an officer, I can use it cross-sectionally across the organisation. It's an instruction and assessment tool because in assessment I can identify your weaknesses, in instruction I can identify your weaknesses and I can be able to fix those two things. Gives us a debrief and complements evidence-based decision making in line with our doctrine. And it's based upon these steps. You need hazard knowledge to make a hazard assessment, to select an appropriate control measure, make a decision and execute your plan. So our knowledge is the background information we need to make assessments. Our hazard assessment is how well we can assess hazards when we turn up to something. Our control is understanding the power of our control measures or what control measures we have available to us. Our decision making is how we select our strategies, tactics, tasks and techniques to execute that, appropriate with our own situation. And the execution is how we execute that selection relevant to our rank or role. So how good are your practical skills as a firefighter? How good are your command and control as an officer? Every incident has a beginning and an end, and we will have complexities through that. And most of these complexities that we will encounter will be at most jobs, and they kind of have a way of dealing with them. If you have an exposure, what do you want to do with it? You want to protect it. If you have someone trapped inside, what do you want to do? You want to rescue them. If you have a fire, you need to extinguish it. If you have traffic, you need to manage it. And if you have hazmat, you need to mitigate it. But to do that stuff, you need to be able to know about the hazard, identify the risk, apply the control measure, make the decision, and execute it. So, how do things go wrong in our industry? Things go wrong when we do a poor hazard assessment. Things go wrong when we make poor decisions. Things go wrong when we don't execute well. But it's not why things go wrong. That's how things go wrong. Why things go wrong is because people have poor hazard knowledge to be able to make an assessment. They have poor control measure knowledge because they get decision paralysis when they're faced with something that they think is greater than what they can do. They don't understand what controls they can put in place. And in execution, we're not giving them enough time on the branch. We're not giving enough hands-on time in actually executing the skill. So knowledge base, all the information you need to know. So for example, frameworks like BSAF can only be applied to structural firefighting if you understand fire dynamics and building construction. I can teach you BSAF, but if you don't have the backing knowledge, you can't do it. So you need that level of understanding to be able to do what you want them to do when they're assessing the hazard. Hazard assessments. We need to do hazard assessments because incorrect hazard assessments is indicative of inadequate subject matter knowledge base. So as officers, you might see us not be able to do a BSAF, so we're going to select poor strategies, tactics, tasks and techniques for our people to do. As firefighters, it informs their decision making when they walk through that threshold and they are out of our supervision. Because when they go through that door, we don't go through with them, they're on their own. Decision making. How are we selecting what we do? Now, if we as instructors or assessors detect poor decision making, it's because our people don't have good control measure knowledge. Because if we're sitting there assessing someone in a yard drill, that's what we call our promotional process where you get out there with 2 trucks and you run a mock incident. We're like, oh, well, they should have done this. Why didn't they do that? If they're doing the best they can with what they know, why didn't they do that? They don't have control measure knowledge. So where do we need to target their training so that they can come back, reassess and be successful? Control measure. So that people understand what we're trying to achieve. Practical skills, just not enough time doing what they need to do. And as they're being instructed, maybe we need to change up the instruction that we do. Coming from a PE background, I know you can't tell now because I've gained a couple of kilos, but you know, if someone's not putting the branch in the right thing and you just go, hey, watch me do this, you do it. Hey, watch me do this, you do it. You're not actually doing it. I might have to move your hand up into something. I might have to be able to help you in another way to show you what I want. As an OIC, this method can manage each complexity in our orderly fashion. It allows me to break them down and go, cool, what's my hazard knowledge about traffic? What's the control measure knowledge? Put cones out. Done. You can see how we can start to assess people's decisions, get inside their head and identify what they need from us as instructors, assessors and organisations. Firefighters, exact same thing. It helps us as learners because as learners we want a structured system of learning. How frustrated do you get when you're trying to learn something and it might be like most people in this room love structural firefighting, so I'll take that as a given. Now we're teaching you hazmat and we're going to talk about chemical equations, but we haven't even talked about risks and stuff like that to you. So everything that we teach is delivered differently because the people writing it think differently. Therefore, you're trying to uptake information differently. So as learners, if we can streamline it, you now have a systematic process that we apply to everything we do. From a teaching point, it enables clear, consistent information transfer. From an assessing point, it aligns our performance with our objectives and it ensures coordinated, safe and effective action when we're executing out on the fireground, out in the street. I've just gone through all those, sorry. All right. So how do we framework this? And by framework, I mean, how do we capture this in doctrine? Nobody likes it, eh? If I said, oi, tonight we're going to read doctrine, you'd be stoked to turn up to the watch, wouldn't you? You'd be running in there, real excited about it. No one likes it because there's always too much. No one likes it because it's too prescriptive. No one likes it because it's too rigid for the variables that we go to. But if we didn't have it, what would govern what we do? If we didn't have it, how could we manage our obligations to crew safety under our OH&S laws? And can we achieve both of these things? Can we have doctrine that governs what we do, allows us to maintain safety and compliance with OH&S, but still isn't too much, it still isn't too prescriptive, and it still isn't too rigid? What we want, so first of all, guidelines for writing guidelines. So I'll take you on a little bit of a journey, sidestep. So we were tasked with writing doctrine, and we decided, you know what, no one's getting what they had, we're going to make something new. So we took Dan's operational strategies, we grabbed each former agency's information around that, so the Field Emergency Response Guide and their SOPs and stuff, and we started to cross off the hazards that Dan listed to things that we'd already captured. That gave us a gaps analysis. Once we had our gaps analysis, we started to research. We went outside and we went, hey, Queensland, what do you do? New South Wales, what do you do? London Fire Brigade, what do you do? New York Fire Department, what do you do around these risks? But we don't operate like London, we don't operate like New York, we don't even operate like Queensland or New South Wales. So we had to take their control measure, bring it back and go, how could we execute this in our operational reality? So we had to work through that. Then we tested it with our crews and we brought in our subject matter advisors. So if I asked any of you who's the best road traffic collision person in your service, you'd be like, oh, it's Pete or Susie. So we went and grabbed Pete and Susie and went, come in here, help us write stuff. Because I don't know much about RTCs, but they do. And if everyone already recognised them as a subject matter advisor and they write the doctrine and they help us with the training material, now people have faith in it. So when writing and delivering, we've got to remember that it is only a guide to help people how to operate when it counts. Yes, you need reference material, so you're going to make reference manuals and you're going to keep them aside, but the actual guideline itself is not going to be 60 pages long because no one will read it, and if it is 60 pages long, I bet you no one executes it the way you want them to. We need to write in a prescribed flexibility manner. We want to encourage people's decision-making based upon their individual skills, knowledge and experience so that I know when you tip out that you're going to make a predictable decision no matter what you face. Might not be best practice, but I know it's going to be safe and I know it's going to be predictable and I know it's going to be in line with what we want as an organisation. You want to test it and seek feedback, and not just with your experts, with other people. Who is the lowest person that will sit in the front seat of a machine in your organisation? Crew manager. Yeah? Am I right? No? Yes? Yeah? So I need to know that my crew managers feel supported by the organisation in the execution of what I'm asking them to do when they do sit in that front seat. So I want to go, oi, crew managers, I want you to read this and understand it. And if you don't, tell me how I could make it better for you so that you can understand it and you do know what we want you to do. And if there is something there that's non-negotiable, you go, look, we can't take this out. How can I write it better, or how can I train you better to understand that? And again, utilise trusted people. Find your badasses, bring them in, bring them on board early and allow them to have a really big part of that process.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. It's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
We looked at our job in policy, planning, and operational guidance, not as people to write the doctrine, but as people to facilitate the writing of doctrine in the framework that we had decided we would go with. I don't know much about a lot of things. So why would I dictate what people do if I've got people that are smarter than me that I can lean on? So, how do you decide if it's too much or not enough? If it's important, you write it down. If it's written down, you train it. Therefore, if it's not important, don't write it down, don't train it. And it's the easiest way to go, hey, what actually needs to be in here? What actually needs to be in here? And now, to you instructors, the other thing when you're training it, to make it more palatable to people, to get it through because you don't have enough time, nobody cares about the one time you did this one thing at this one job and it worked for you. If it's not in line with the doctrine, it's not in line with the curriculum. A little sidetrack story. We were doing skills maintenance in high-rise. So in our operational strategies, one of our risks in high-rise is gaining entry, because everything's automated now, right? So we need to teach our people how to break doors, fire-rated doors. So we just had them on Halligan, axe, and rabbit tool. And one of my instructors is there going, oh yeah, so you can also grab your pocket knife out and you can peel away the door jamb on some doors and do that. And I'm like, dude, no. We're in a high-rise building with fire-rated doors. The only lockable doors are going to be fire-rated doors. They're all going to be in metal jambs. Everything you just said doesn't exist in what we're trying to do here. And you've just wasted their time, your time, and you've confused them. Because now the last thing that they've left with isn't the knowledge of the Halligan axe rabbit tool that you gave them. It's thinking about grabbing a pocket knife out and trying something fancy. So just don't do it. So here's an example of our operational method statement around structural firefighting. I'm telling you what an offensive strategy is. I'm telling you what a defensive strategy is. And when we change over, so in my organisation, legislative responsibility, highest ranking officer is incident controller. So if someone outranks you, bang, it's your job. So say I'm in charge. I've been there for 25 minutes at a house fire. I've selected offensive. I've got a tactical plan. We're executing it. You turn up as my boss. You should probably think after 25 minutes, maybe we might need to change this because you're not being successful. Because that building's been under thermal threat for 25 minutes, everything's starting to fail, maybe it's time to pull out. Or maybe it's time to continue and we just adjust something else. Then we ask people's questions, and this is what we call prescribable flexibility that allows for a repeatable, predictable approach. Based on your considerations, after you've conducted a size up, you decide whether the available resources en route or on scene are sufficient, whether you have the extinguishing medium you require, and whether the building's going to stand up. Because at the end of the day, if something happens, you're going to be up there in court and you're going to need to answer those 3 questions. So if you can go, based upon my knowledge, which wasn't much, I took a very risk-averse approach to do this. Well, based upon my knowledge of building construction, blah, 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 we did this, this, and this. It's predictable because I'm putting some emphasis on you understanding what you're doing, but I'm also protecting you by saying, hey, if you don't know much, take a step back, safe person approach. And if you answer no to those, adopt a defensive strategy in all other situations. So we want it to capture it because it's crucial for firefighter safety and effectiveness. We want to be consistent. We need unified understanding and action around what we want people to do. We need risk-based justification. You need to be able to say, yep, cool, I'm doing that because of this. Did you notice how nowhere in our operational method statement we talked about victims in buildings? Did you mention that yesterday, the victim is the IC? Yeah, that's irrelevant. You're either going in or you're not based on those 3 factors. Because you don't want the victim being the incident controller because they're in there. You want to be the incident controller and you're making decisions because of safety. Training and assessment, it allows us to align instruction consistent to experience, gives us operational clarity, gives us legal accountability, and allows us to adapt what we're doing. So our framework connects our strategy to action, builds confidence and trust in the system, and enables our development and drives our continuous improvement. But I just want to talk through it in this slide better. Authorising Act Regs. Everyone's got it. Foundations, outcomes, strategic plan. We never heard of integrated risk management plan or a community risk management plan until Dan Stevens came out. We didn't know what that was. It was funny. And then we were like, oh, we should probably do these. Anyway, general orders and concepts of operations. We also didn't have performance and assurance. Like that was not done in Australia. It was just weird. But yeah, general orders and concept of ops. But this is what I really want to get down to. So what's our strategic? Understand the risk, operational strategies. Understand the approach, operational method statements. Oh, what's happened there? Have I hit a button? Operational guidance, operational practice, then become our tactical layer. What steps are you going to take to achieve that strategy? What tasks, techniques are you going to implement to achieve those tasks? And what's your reference material? You've got training manuals, you've got field emergency response guides. So I reckon if like you got a 60-page SOP, I could go through that and I could take a lot of that information out, put in your reference material, and just leave your SOP as decision making. And then once you've done that, you need to put all these people in the same building. We have the luxury because we're pretty largely metropolitan, and Australians don't mind. Like, I travel an hour and a half to work each day. Like, it's just big country. But you need all these people in the one building to prevent siloing. Because we all talk about siloing, yeah? Everything's siloed. Yep, getting a nod. Everyone know what I mean by that? So siloing is when you work in isolation from everyone else. So you know when training, go and develop a training plan, and then planning and policy, like, where'd that come from? So you want all of them in the same building so that when they go get a coffee or when they see each other in the corridor, they talk about what they're working on. And if I'm like, oh, hey, just thinking, like, I'm at plan policy, we've just updated this guidance, what's that going to do to your training material? So we can now have those informal discussions and work on that bottom layer and have better oversight of what each of us are doing. Performance and assurance. Operations come up to performance and assurance and go, did you check out that job last night? Yeah, they executed the policy, but I don't think it's right. So let's go talk to these people and these people and these people so that they're working together to solve those issues, not working in isolation from each other. So how do we get here? It sounds pretty utopian, and being completely honest, we're nowhere near being where we want to be, but we know the path we want to take to get there. We're working towards it. It's a long road, and we'll probably find some things that don't work. We'll probably change some of the ways we're approaching things. And we're constantly looking at what other people are doing so we can either justify what we're doing or change it. Before we went down this journey, we were a very arrogant fire service. We thought we were the best. Going on this journey, we're quickly learning that we don't know as much as we think we did, and we need to look at whatever anyone else is doing, because the worst thing I can find out is we're happy with what we're doing. So what does success look like in operations, in training, in doctrine? You have a shared understanding of strategic intent. Your tactical plans are married with matching tasks. The techniques are performed clearly, consistently, and people understand what I mean when I ask them to do something. Actions across crews are consistent. So if you're relieving for the day at another fire station, you know they're operating the same way your fire station does. Debriefs map the actions we took to the doctrine. Why did I make that decision? Because I went through these 3 questions in my head and I'm justifying it by this. And the performance is reproducible across crews and shifts. But change ain't easy. 2 things firefighters hate. Everyone know this one? Change and the way things are, yeah?
Fire services thrive on tradition, experience, stories. There's nothing better than sitting down at the kitchen table with a brew, listening to a story. But if we rely solely on stories to exchange our experience, to exchange our information, to improve our practice, we're going to miss things. Because you're going to tell me a fire and you're going to tell me why you did something, But in your time, you might be like, oh, I should have probably mentioned this is also happening and that's why I was allowed to fill it. So by being able to give a structure, we're able to talk about, or map debriefs to, our doctrine. So you're able to share your story and your considerations and the back and thinking that you had of why you did things. We want a structure that doesn't replace that experience, it amplifies it by making it more shareable and more teachable. So I'll leave that up there. Everyone heard those objections? Yeah. When people don't like change, they're going to say things like, we've always done it this way. Oh man, you just overcomplicated it. You can't box firefighting in like that because there's so many variables. I don't need doctrine to fight fire. But you can have these conversations, you can tease them out. And as soon as you don't have the conversation, you've lost them. So you need to have conversations and they might go around in circles, but you need to have them. So when they say, you've always done it this way, hey, I know that the boys done it that way, but we want to move here. What's stopping you? Oh, well, I'm used to that. I've done it for 25 years. Oh, well, don't stress. We'll go back with them 5 times. We'll get consistency by doing it. You can't box firefighting like that. Yeah, but if we have repeatable systems, it's easier to adapt a plan than make a plan. And I don't need doctrine to know how to fight a fire. You are not. You're pretty good. But why don't you help us build better doctrine to share it? Because what's happening to fire services around the world right now? Everyone's walking out the door because they're at time. And most fire services in the 90s didn't hire, for a period. So you've got this massive gap and you've got this massive influx. Before you leave, I want you to, remember when you used to say, I want to leave this place better than I found it? I want you to come in here and help me do that. I want you to come in and help me write the doctrine and apply it, sell it to people so that your experience, your impact on this fire service is a positive when you walk out that door. So change leadership tips. Identify your informal leaders. Get them on board early. Go to your busy stations. Go get those people who, if you don't involve, are going to be your biggest opponents. Yeah, because they're the ones you're challenging. Does everyone get what I mean by that? If I don't involve my experts, my biggest sticks in the mud are going to be those people out at Chip that go for fires, and lots of them, people already know who they are. Bring them in, get them to help you. When you do an after-action review, don't focus on what you did wrong, focus on what you did well, but also allow what we did wrong to come to each input. Hey, so if we were to do that again right now, looking at this, I would probably change this decision. Didn't do anything wrong, look, we did the best we could at the time with what we knew, but now that we've had a look and a bit of reflection, I've learned a bit more, I'll change the approach next time. And celebrate the small wins bubble builders. Hey, you know that post-employment you did, we just trained last week, that was great. That happened last year, that's why I reckon when we got that line out, medically done. And that's a massive difference. Say it in front of the watch, celebrate being good. And gets real powerful when you know that you don't have a confident firefighter and then you do that too. Because they then have more buy to you. So to get here, what we need to do, as I said, we're building a new boat. You need to look at everything you do and why you do it and then start to hopper it into the relevant fields. What are your techniques going to be? What are your tasks going to be? What are your tactics? What are your strategies? Who's going to execute what? Write your doctrine and align your lessons. If your lesson plans don't have lines to SOP, XYZ, operational practice, XYZ, operational guidance, XYZ, there'll be holes. And those holes will be where everyone gets found out. We watched it happen to LFD after Grenfell. And as I said, we started our team in 2020, so Grenfell was still pretty fresh down the lines. We wanted to create a net to be able to capture everything we did. And training contextualises doctrine, doctrine governs operations. Not doctrine's job to train, it's not training's job to govern. You have to work within each other's frameworks. But at the end of the day, where does the magic happen? We spoke about it yesterday, and it's something we can both truly believe in. The ability of your firefighters to decide your tactics well before the tones go off. There's always that question of like, hey, you've got someone hanging out a second window, you've got fire on the ground floor, what are you doing? Well, that decision's made for you before you even left the station. Can your people go to ladder up to get that person, or are they going to get in once? Because you don't choose whatever they're best at. The decision's made. And it's down to your people's ability. You need to invest in your firefighters. To invest in your firefighters, you need happy, motivated people, writing doctrine, delivering training, and providing ops assurance working together and ensure that that happens. At the end of the day, I'd rather 3 young firefighters line up a job site than the best officer in the round of firefighters. Because that best officer, he or she will be hamstrung heavily by the ability to improve. They can come up with amazing tactical plans, but if the crew can't get clothes off the truck, nothing's going. All right, on that, I'll leave it there. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.